I see. One other state story is we also have, and I think this has been signed into law, Mississippi is the latest Republican-led state to ban election offices from accepting donations from private groups for voting operations, a movement fueled by conservative suspicion of donations by Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg in 2020. Governor Reeves, yes, did sign the House bill on Friday, and it becomes law at the beginning of the fiscal year, July the 1st. With me is State Senator Angela Hill. A lot of different legislation. Can you think of some notable things that didn't make it to the deadline yesterday? The equal pay made it. The equal pay, women's equal.
The equal pay made it.
Yeah.
Actually, I had a parental rights bill that was fairly similar to what's passed in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
That was a curriculum transparency and parental rights that did not make it. So Mississippi could have had a law very similar to what Florida is, what DeSantis is getting all the flack about. But we have some school districts that are doing a really good job, but then we have some other ones that are indoctrinating children, and I've seen it in the curriculum. I mean, I've seen it in the curriculum in good schools because it typically permeates most of the curriculum that is bought by the school districts. Scholastic books, I've seen it. Seen all this indoctrination in as late as last week. I was sent pictures of books at the book fair in the local county school, and teachers were trying to shuffle through those books and sort through them. So that's something that we need to look at because things are changing, and there's no way that I believe that somebody ought to be talking to a kindergartner about gender identity.
I agree with you, and when we say that we don't have a lot of that, if any, and some people say we don't have any of that going on as far as CRT or teaching these kids at that level of kindergarten or first or second grade, then I think that's even more important to go on and put that in a law that has consequences if you do that. So that simply means a teacher out there, and 99% of them are good, but he or she has gone rogue, and there needs to be some consequences. If it's not a curriculum, they don't need to be teaching it. So why not have that law there?
Well, there's no reason that we shouldn't have it. I'm the person that's always said, it's better to be proactive than reactive.
Yeah.
And I, like I said, I was sent pictures of scholastic books that were at the book fair that, said some children have two mommies, some children have two daddies. So what they're doing is introducing kindergartners into this alternate lifestyle. And, if that's the lifestyle that somebody chooses, so be it. But leave it out of the kindergarten curriculum.
Let's talk about Buddy's Law, because I know something that you have worked on for a while, but tell me the ins and outs of that bill.
Okay, Buddy's Law, it was a long process to get that thing signed into law. The Senate passed it unanimously. It died in the House Judiciary B Committee. I amended a hog bill on the floor and got it attached to that, kind of used for leverage, and then we actually got it put in a Judd B conference report and another bill that actually came out in Senate Bill 2244. And it basically states that if a child that cannot be charged as an adult is guilty of one of these heinous, torturous crimes against a dog or a cat, just a dog or a cat now, like the crime where the child set Buddy's face on fire, tied him up with a cord and set his face on fire, that we're going to make sure that if that child's in youth court and is adjudicated delinquent for one of those heinous, torturous acts, that they're going to get a psychiatric evaluation and treatment. Because typically, if some kid is pouring hot water on a dog or pouring gasoline or lighter fluid on a dog and setting them on fire, they need some help, and we need to try to help them before they get into the adult detention system, and that there's no chance to salvage their lives when they keep getting farther and farther, off the normal behavior path in society. So that was my hope that Buddy's case was so sad, and it caught so many people's attention, and there was such an outcry for something to be done for children. We came to the consensus that this was the best thing to do, was to try to get children some kind of treatment if they were acting out in that manner toward animals.
Senator, that was it? That's as far as it went? In other words, there is a mandatory psychiatric evaluation period?
Yes, that's what it did, because most of the court judges that I talked to said that instead of some type of mandatory sentence at Oakley, which some of them may get as well, because that's still left up to the judge, that we needed to make sure that if they were in front of a youth court judge or youth court referee with this type of crime against a dog or a cat, that this was the best thing that we could do for everybody involved, is to get that child some treatment.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Not every judge is going to order the treatment, you know, and so that's where we were with this. We wanted to make sure, because youth court records are sealed. We don't know what happens in those youth court cases, and the public and law enforcement felt like that that we needed to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that even if that case was sealed, that child was getting some kind of treatment and assessment.
I think most people will agree, and most people will also wonder why it took that long. But both chambers of the Mississippi House have agreed to sign off on the House's Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund. That was done. We did have some, when the governor was on with me yesterday, and Hill's interview will be played again this morning at 8:30, and you can hear it for yourself. But there was some kind of a miscommunication in there where the Senate bill put in $20 million. But I think what happens, and I think he failed to mention this on the air, that $20 million was, and if I might be wrong about this, but that $20 million was a one-time funding, and then the House kind of balked on that and said, no, let's go $20 million, and it's recurring because we can't do this. We need 20. We've used 5. Then you'll have to supplant 5 more into that trust fund. So apparently there was some snafu going on that one. They agreed on only $10 million. So the recurring will be $10 million on that one. Is that kind of how you understand that bill?
Well, it did start out to be $20 million, and honestly, whether it says it's recurring or not, the legislature can appropriate. They can appropriate more, they can appropriate less, depending on how the program is going. And that's something that we discussed on the floor, is that, you know, the legislature still needs to oversee the spending of the state. I'm not real concerned about that. We need to get it off the ground and see how it's going to work. And the legislature can always appropriate more money, whether it says it's a $10 million recurring or not. We can always appropriate and add money to that. So I don't think that's great of a concern. If it's something that we see is working, you draw down the federal funds. You know, I was real concerned about seeing some improvements on our state parks and our public lands. And I feel like as legislators, our first obligation is to do our due diligence with the lands that the state is already in charge of, to try to make improvements there. And that's why we put language in there that says the first thing that should be considered is improvement of state land. Because I want to improve the state lands that I'm in charge of, that the public has put me in charge of, to oversee and be good stewards of before we start, you know, doling it out to every private
I understand. And I think that was I think that was the Lieutenant Governor's view also, and that was where the crux of the problem was for the most part during the whole life of this bill finally becoming law. And I guess they'll, as the Lieutenant Governor said yesterday, they'll go through negotiations on this one way or the other, or figure that out. It does have in here improvement of state parks, state outdoor recreation features and trails, but I think the Lieutenant Governor yesterday said that they had an assessment from someone who was knowledgeable and an architect, and he said just to get him back in shape, probably going to be, I thought he said $130 million, but again, the interview will be on at 8:37 this morning, so it's a lot more than 40 or 50.
Yeah, the Lieutenant Governor actually got somebody to do, and I can't remember exactly who it was, to do an assessment for us to see what it would take to get our public lands back in shape and our parks back in shape. And I tell you, more and more people are visiting Mississippi. If we market Mississippi correctly, people are RVing after COVID. There's been a surge in people with RVs after COVID. We need to get our campgrounds, our public lands, our public parks.
I agree with you. We need 2.0, and I think we have it in the word glamping, which many people are talking about.
Yes. And
glamping.
I'm one of these people that has been glamping and camping long before COVID ever hit. So no, that's something. That's the future. I mean, it's absolutely
I agree with you.
The future.
Listen,
and
I hate to
people
cut you
who take
off,
their
but the
kids and
computer's
their
going to
dogs
cut us off in a moment or two, so we got to go. I thank you for joining us, Senator